The Almost Perfect Podcast. Welcome to the Almost Perfect Podcast, a celebration of fuck-ups, failures, and falling flat on your face. This is a podcast that believes you can learn from experience, but that experience doesn't have to be your own. Hi, I'm Bob Perfect, and I'm a functional fuck-up. Let's learn from somebody else's mistakes. And today we're learning from Paul Gioia. Now, Paul is a musician, a teacher, and a recording studio owner from Pretoria, and he is the lead guitarist and singer for ATFN. All this for nothing. If you're an old school rock kid, then you would definitely know who they are. They were quite a big deal for their time. They started back in 1998, and they were one of the first proggy type of bands to really get a lot of nationwide love, and they were on the radio. They killed it live. They did a lot of cool things. They were really dope band, and unfortunately things came to a halt when Paul got a hand injury that saw him bailing from South Africa for a while to go to London to lick his wounds for a while. But he came back. He's got a recording studio called Asylum Studios, and they've been recording bands and artists since the 2000s. He also has an honors degree in music from Tuks, and yeah, he's a music teacher, so there's a lot going on for him. But the band got back together a few years ago, 2 years ago, I think. Well, their first release in about 14 years was an EP called Reverence back in 2019. And today, the day you're listening to this, if you're listening to it on the day that it is released, Friday the 30th, then yeah, you would be able to go and check out their latest single, Pathology or Pantomime. And we have a deep discussion about this track towards the end of the podcast. It's such a great podcast. We get into so much. We talk about identity, we talk about mental health, we explore the Durban and Pretoria connection, we talk about the reimagining of the band's name now that they've all grown up and see the world a little bit differently than when they were 16 and 17 when they started the band. So yeah, this is a great chat. Paul was very open, very honest, shared a lot. I think there's a hell of a lot you can learn from this. Of course, I need to let you know that this podcast is brought to you by you. That means that you can support it by going to patreon.com/almost perfect. How you living, yo? I hope you're good. Hope you're having a good week. Hope you had a long weekend, I guess, the 4-day thing. I know my girlfriend did. For me, public holidays are a weird thing, you know. Don't really have a job these days. This is one of the things. And then, you know, as a freelancer, public holidays don't really matter. But this weekend they did, because my girlfriend and I got to spend a lot of time together. It was so nice. I went and stayed with her over the weekend, and we did a cool photo shoot, which I'm sure some of you have seen on the various social medias. And if you're a patron, you would have got some exclusive photos from that. So that was fun. And then yeah, she came and stayed with me and my gran out here in Moseley, which is greener pastures of Queensborough. And we watched movies with my gran. We watched Something Wild and we watched Face Off. Both were my recommendations. But yeah, they enjoyed them. Although I forgot that Something Wild had a pretty gratuitous sex scene in there. So that was fun. Got to watch that with my gran and my girlfriend in the same room. Good times. At least we're all adults, you know. At least we're all adults. And it wasn't that awkward. But yeah, I had a great time. And this week's been good, man. For me, at least. I've managed to, the podcast has done well. A lot of people have been sharing the Lisa Gola episode. I've gotten a lot of good response for that, a lot of good feedback. And yeah, I really, really appreciate it. We did well on the charts this week. We got up to number 3, which on the comedy interview charts in South Africa, you know, it's a pretty small little market there, and it's only for the one day this week, but it's a nice little pat on the back for myself to go, hey, you're getting there, you know, people are listening, people are responding. I asked people on social media to rate, review, and subscribe and do all those things, and they did it this week because I kind of put a little pressure. I don't know if you know this, but that shit really fucking helps, especially on iTunes at the moment, or Apple Podcasts, or whatever. If you rate the podcast, it helps. If you review the podcast, it helps even more. And if you subscribe, I think it's like the same. I don't know. It just, all of that matters, as well as listening to the fucking thing. I know it's putting a lot on you guys, especially when I'm like, hey, sign up to the Patreon. Hey, buy a fucking mug. Hey, like this, share this, fucking follow me here, do all of this. And it's just, I know, man, I know, but it's like, we got to do these fucking things. If you don't have budgets, if you don't have large networks, you've got to try and build them up from nothing. So yeah, thank you. Thank you to everyone who shared. Thank you to everyone who reviewed. Thank you to everyone who rated. And thank you to everyone who, after hearing all of this, is going to go and do all of those things. What else? I haven't been able to fucking listen to American podcasts lately because they all keep talking about vaccines and how they're getting their vaccines. And I'm sorry, like, it fucking pisses me off. And I know our government's been the less said about them, the fucking better, I guess. But at the same time, there's been so much fuckery from the West when it comes to the vaccine distribution and the IP when it comes to manufacturing and stuff, and like patents. And I'm sure you've been keeping up with the news yourself, and you know the vibes. Unless you listen to Joe Rogan's podcast, in which case you probably know fuck all. And you're thinking, hey, I'm young, I probably don't need a vaccine. Or maybe not. Maybe you're actually like, sometimes Joe's clever and sometimes he's not. I don't know what your vibe is if you're listening to that shit in 2021. But yeah, like even Mark, man, I can't listen to Mark Maron at the moment because he's talking about going out and not wearing masks and how great it is. And I'm just like, I'm so fucking jealous. And it's just like, I just hate it, man. I fucking hate it because I just want that shit. Give it to me. Hey, give it to me now. I want that vaccine. I want to just be able to get back to a little bit more of a normal life. Be able to do comedy without. I mean, I haven't done a comedy gig because I just don't feel there's a way to. I mean, people are doing it relatively safely, but I don't know if relatively safely is safely enough for me. And I've got, just my own moral things where I'm just, no, I don't think that's what I should be doing. And so, I want to get vaccinated so I can fucking do some stand-up comedy and I can see my friends and I can fucking, just have a good time again. And I know a lot of you probably feel very similarly and might be feeling just as like frustrated seeing how the rest of the world is getting vaccinated and things are moving a lot quicker in other spaces. But at the same time, it's a lot worse in other spaces and you've got to be grateful for what you have. And whatever, man. It sucks. Just, we should all be like we should all have access to the vaccine. And fuckery is afoot. And I don't know what to do about that. So I guess I'm going to move on to the shoutouts. Yes, if you are a patron over on patreon.com/almostperfect, then you can become a part of the titular titles tier. Now, this is a $10 tier, and it is the top tier. There is no tier higher in brackets yet, but you can become a part of the cast and crew of this podcast. You can start working for me by giving me money. It's a very great scheme that we've got going on here. Not a scheme. Definitely not a scheme. Not a multi-level marketing thing. It's not Bitcoin. It's not like any of that. It's a real thing. You get benefits from it. You get to put this on your CV, I think. Anyway, shout outs to Chief Sales Officer Settle Heresies in the Greater Overberg region, Rousseau. Shout out to Stephen Olivier, who is the executive producer. Shout outs to Karan Chetty, who is the assistant to the regional manager. Shout out to Kath Jenkin, who is the inevitable ruler of the universe, and Queen Swifty. Shout out to Neil Green, who is the key grip. Shout out to King Julian. Shout out to our spiritual advisor, Vashendra Naidu. Shout out to the almost perfect hedge fund manager, Karan Sleman. And of course, shout out to our pantsless weasel, Tyron Love. And lastly, shout outs to our anonymous benefactor. If you've guessed who the anonymous benefactor is, you can hit me up, bob@almostperfect.co.za, and I'll send you a pack of stickers. And if you sign up to the Patreon, I send you a pack of stickers. That's how that works. There's no other way to get them. You've got to go and give me money, or you've got to figure out who the anonymous benefactor is. It's that simple. you can also support the podcast by buying a mug. They are 100 Rand each. You can hit me up on the socials, just in the DMs, or you can hit me up bob@almostperfect.co.za. They are 100 Rand each, with 100 Rand delivery. We do postnet to postnet, so 200 Rand total, but 10 Rand from each sale goes to Sasonke, and Sasonke is an organization that is working to decriminalize sex work in South Africa. I think they do great work. I think you should check them out at sasonke.org.za. And yeah, if you buy a mug, you know a little bit of the money, just a tiny, tiny little sliver of that money really goes towards Sasonke. And then if you feel good about that, you can go to Sasonke and give them some more money at sasonke.org.za. So with all that out the way, it is now time for the Almost Perfect podcast with Paul Gioia. So how are you living, Paul?
My man, I am still living, and that's a blessing, considering everything else that's going on around us. I still wake up every day kind of amazed, going like, oh, fuck, another one. Shit, it's happening. Brilliant.
I think.
And how are you feeling, man? How are you doing
situation?
Yeah.
Similar at times, sometimes a bit more positive than that, sometimes a bit more negative than that. But
Right.
lately
Yeah.
I've actually had a really good weekend. Got to spend time with my girlfriend, and yeah, we just had a wonderful time together. So I'm in a good mood. I'm in a good vibe. Looking forward to the future and all of that. But it doesn't always feel that way. And considering you started a band called All This for Nothing, I assume
Yeah.
you've probably dealt with, I don't know, just hard. Well, I'm gonna just get into it, like stuff like depression and that throughout your life, or am I, just assuming wild things there based on the band name and your lyrics and stuff?
Yeah, I guess so. I think when we were kids when we started, we started the band, Hank and I, when we were 16, 17, and I'm a year or 40 now. So it's like, when you're young, you don't really think of yourself as being sort of an anxious person or depressive or anything like that.
Yeah.
And I think the name was just kind of like, it was, punk was big, and a little bit of sort of tongue-in-cheek cynicism was like the order of the day. And we figured, this sounds a little bit like, I don't know, fucking edgy or whatever when you're a kid. And maybe Fat Michael like this. But like, it's weird actually how the name has evolved philosophically for us over the years, and like where it is now, our sort of outlooks on life have changed considerably, and the cynicism is just it's not really there at all. So we decided to add a little comma between this and for, so it's like all this for nothing, as if, I don't know, not to sound like a bit of a douchebag, but a bit of, it takes on that what the Buddhists talk about, like this whole thing is here for you. It's all happening right now, and it's all free. It's all free. It's all happening, and you just have to access it. And that's kind of, we looked at it. We were thinking about changing the name, and like no. Like if we look at it that way, then it really actually resonates with where we're at as people now. Like all this for free, for nothing. So that's sort of where it's at right now.
I was also thinking it could kind of also be a thing of like, this time that you're doing it, you're not doing it for, for fame or for glory or anything like that. This time it's for you guys, it's for nothing.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
But yeah, so starting out the band, you're young punks. You've just, okay, so I'll be honest, the name of your band is one of the things that drew me to it. Like, because I was also just this young punk who, once again, didn't know what depression was except for through Black Flag, basically, and
okay, yeah,
anxiety and those sorts of things are things we've only really come to understand later in life. But I was definitely nihilistic, and I knew that. Like, I was definitely like,
sure,
life doesn't matter, everything is meaningless, like just party hard, just fuck out, like that was my thing. And it wasn't necessarily what you guys were pushing with your lyrics, but I felt like it was a fairly nihilistic band.
Yeah, I guess when looking back at it, like we were certainly working hard at the band. We the thing we believed in was music.
Yeah.
So, through the years, I guess everyone has sort of maybe to some degree found some kind of, I don't know, spiritual or philosophical pathway that has helped them in their life. But like at the time, it was like, yeah, the world is pretty rubbish. And, and it wasn't lost on us that the world is a hell of a lot more rubbish for other people. I mean, we were a bunch of suburban white boys. Not to undermine how life can be shit for other people, but it's like we had homes, we had roofs over our heads, we had food at night, most of us had our parents together, and all that stuff helps you in life. But like in terms of the greater view, it was like, yeah, fuck the world, fuck the stupid assholes, let's just put everything into music. And we tended to sing about things or write about things that were more cerebral, more about emotion and stuff. And it was the punk bands that made us. It was only really the punk bands that we heard doing that outright. And funny, like for it seems a bit weird, but bands like say Lagwagon or No Use for a Name and things like more the skate punk bands, they didn't have any problem singing about mental health or emotions or like deep relationships and stuff that other bands weren't singing about, and we related to that, and we were kind of like, fuck yeah, we also want to sing about that stuff because it's about as open as you can get, and that inspired us to do that. So I don't know, nihilistic necessarily, but maybe it did come across a bit that way. But we did try to offer some kind of like reprieve in the songs. If I look back at the early songs, it was like there was a lot of like problem and potential solution in the songs. There was always that kind of light and shade. So there was the problem, and then we would offer perhaps like how we saw a way out would be.
I get that. In punk music in general, and I wouldn't say you guys were necessarily a punk band. I mean, you've definitely evolved way beyond that now. But that was what was cool about that music was, I mean, it's also kind of ironic in ways that you have bands on major labels making millions of dollars singing about, how not depressing, but like how the world sucks and how, fight the system and fuck this and fuck that. But we related to it, even as, I mean, I was like lower middle class growing up and, very much a loner and didn't get along with the people around me too well, especially in school and stuff. And so hearing these thoughts be expressed by, people who were slightly older and similar to me definitely helped me, I don't know, it just helped shape things and it helped me feel less alone. And I think that's kind of the point. It's like even though you might be discussing some nihilistic things, it's because those are thoughts that you sometimes have and you want to share them and you want other people to relate to them. And it doesn't mean that you're saying that everything is always going to suck forever. It's just saying sometimes this is what I think. And that's what I love about music, especially, is that you can get across thoughts in such a wonderful way, such a way that like really hits home for people and can really live on for, a long time. So I guess that's going to lead me to, how did you get into making music?
Well, my father, well, let me first say I don't really have any musical people in my family other than my uncle, but my father is a massive record collector, and he's similar to perhaps one of our mutual friends, Paul Buttery, and we'll get to the Durban connection later.
But like, I didn't even know you knew Paul, but
guys who can't guys who can't really like play, or aren't really like into playing, but have this humongous musical knowledge.
Yeah,
bands, like I always call him like king of the underdog B-sides. He'll tell you who played keyboards or bass guitar on like Springsteen's third guitarist's second solo album. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. I
love people like that.
Oh man, and it's weird. I'm not like that. I'm musical, but like I can't retain that type of historical knowledge. Like they're like an encyclopedia, man. So I'd often be like, oh, Dad, I heard this and I heard this. And he'd be like, oh, it's this and this and this released then. And then hand me the damn CD, and then like, that was like, to this day is still like, I'm so grateful for that experience. And So that's kind of how I got into it. And my grandfather was like into jazz records and stuff. So there was always a lot of music around. And then, you kind of like a kid, and you, like a lot of kids are into whatever's popular at the time. For me, it was like the early 90s. So it was like fucking monster hits and cheesy Dutch techno that was dominating here, like Two Unlimited and shit like that. And then my dad was always harassing me like, bro, what are you doing, man? Like, but he actually, no, he didn't pressure me. He was just always kind of like, have a listen to The Clash, have a listen to Black Sabbath, have a listen to this and this and this. Always kind of nudging me. And for years I was like, fuck, that's old people music. Like, what the hell's that shit, And then I had to get my wisdom teeth taken out. And on the way back from the hospital, my dad was like, listen, bro, we go to the CD shop now, and I want you to choose a CD. And it can't be fucking Two Unlimited and shit. So, and then I went to the metal section, and then there was like this tribute to Black Sabbath, Nativity in Black. And on it is like White Zombie and Biohazard and Sepultura and Typo Negative and Therapy and Bruce Dickinson. And there's a Megadeth cover of
metal.
I know, right? Like a cover album of Black Sabbath songs. And the Megadeth cover of Paranoid, which, I mean, we all know, but that still just rips my head off. When I heard that, I was like, instant switch. Like that thrash sound, that fast, fucking angry, tight, kick-ass sound just grabbed me by the balls. And I literally pretty much decided there and then that's like music was going to be my life. And that was it. Megadeth.
So were you like a Megadeth kid over Metallica? Were you like, fuck the Metallica kids, or you like them both?
Oh, fuck. I still am, bro. No, I'm not that cynical. I'm not that cynical anymore. Like, I really can appreciate like what they've done. But like, for me, it wasn't so much Dave. It was Marty Friedman. It was like how that oak was playing, and just that level of musicality from a guy who's not really well versed in music. We consider him like a virtuoso, but in interviews he's like, bro, I don't know if I'm fucking playing G major or if I'm, in M squared minor. His thing all comes from heart and kind of perhaps knowledge of patterns and stuff, but Marty was the guy. So that Megadeth era, Rust in Peace and Countdown and Euthanasia.
Yeah, Euthanasia was the one that I got into.
Oh, perfect album. And yeah, and I suppose that connection of like Megadeth, because like Rust in Peace is like a lot of punks like that album. It's post fast. It's like,
it's thrashy.
It's so full of razors and piss and political statements and stuff. I suppose before the world was like, oh fuck Dave Mustaine and his asshole attitude, but like, yeah, and that helped sort of like bridge the gap between thrash metal and punk rock, and then like punk was right there next door to jump into.
Snap. And then what punk bands did you start getting into? Because you mentioned like NoFX and Melancholy and that. So that's quite a jump, I would say, from stuff like Megadeth.
Yeah. I think the first one was Strung Out.
Okay.
Strung Out was the one who also like a fat band, and they had like this super metallic sound. It was like a metal band playing punk.
Yeah, just without metal vocals.
Yeah, exactly, man. And super tight soloing and just ripping, like, and that always appealed to me. And then I was like, oh, but these guys are considered like a punk band. That's cool. And then like then you dive in a bit, and then you notice similar quote unquote punk bands that are, like you could listen to them with your metalhead buddies. And obviously, like the cream of the crop for me with that is Propaganda. Like,
oh snap! Yes, I love Propaganda.
Fuck, like, just, I've sat with, like my purest metal buddies, the guys, like the Dragon Force fans and stuff like that. And they're just like, oh, this is, punks don't know how to play guitar and stuff. And then I'll sit and, I remember clearly with one friend of mine who's actually passed away now, Herman, rest in peace. I'll never forget sitting with him, like, and I put on Propaganda's Today's Empires is Tomorrow's Ashes. And this I was like a staunch metal purist, and I'm like, bro, listen to this. Listen how these motherfucking skid PC punks are fucking like ripping. And he's like, oh my god, okay, fuck, is this what the kids are up to? And I'm like, well, it's what, yeah, some of the O's are up to, but like, he's like, fuck, I can dig this, man. And yeah, so like Propagandy and Whippersnapper, and
So you like your
shit,
riffs,
man.
is what I'm getting. That the
Oh my
gist
god,
of
yeah.
here.
Yeah, I love riffs. I suppose it's like a bit of a challenge, like I can appreciate the simpler stuff too. I mean, like fucking Bad Religion is one of my favorite bands of all time. Like the music's not necessarily challenging to play, but that's not the point of it. It's like it's brilliant. It's just
Yeah.
fucking brilliant, and it's all there because of the lyrics. So I mean, the lyrics and the vocals in Bad Religion are as challenging to write as a Marty Friedman riff. So I can't sit and write like Dr. Greg Graffin can. So it's kind of the same. It connects there, I suppose, the technicality of what it takes to write that stuff.
But when did you start making music?
I suppose, when did we start writing? I think we were like 16, listening to not just those bands I mentioned, but a whole bunch of other bands. I mean, we were also into like Nirvana and some like other college rock bands like Better Than Ezra and Goo Goo Dolls and shit. So we really liked music.
Sad.
We really just wanted to consume. Yeah. We just wanted to consume as much music as possible. I mean, we liked hip hop and we liked drum and bass in the 90s. You used to go to CNA and get the K&D. Was it the K&D? What was it called? Knowledge magazine. Sorry. And that was just a drum and bass magazine. So it was just like, I don't know. Yeah, metal and stuff was like the opened the door to it. But like, once we lifted the hood and we saw just like how much fucking rad music was happening out there, you just wanted to like devour it all,
I mean, some people didn't. Some people went into their little subgenres and just like were like, I'm a punk and I'm a metalhead and I'm a this and I'm a that. So
Yeah.
it's really dope that you actually did the digging, because I'd like, yeah, I went through phases where it was like, nah, that shit is whack, because it wasn't what like I
Sure.
thought, was cool at the time. But as I've grown up, like I've learned
Right.
to appreciate all the genres, and I don't even think genre is like a useful thing so much other than as like basic descriptor. But yeah, it's just at this point like such an irrelevant thing. And yeah, I've just learned to love music for what it is. But that's really cool that from a young age you've just been able to, well, as you say, you had that CD with a wide range of metal, and then from there you're like, oh my word, there's all these possibilities, and start listening to everything else. And then, as you're saying, you and your friends get together, and were you playing an instrument before, or you guys decided to start a band and then you started playing?
No, so I think, yeah, I started playing when I was about 12 or 13, because when I got into high school, there was an option to take classical guitar at the school that I attended. So I needed to get like a nylon string guitar in order to take music. If you took music theory, you had to take an instrument. So in the standard 5, I got the guitar, little nylon, which I still play on every day. I write on it. I play gigs on it. Like I put a pickup in it, and like I use that fucking every day. But I was 12, so we started then. But I just wanted to come back to what you were saying, like what's so super interesting, about like feeling sort of regimented to a genre. That was definitely something we felt. It was like there was kind of like a weird guilt. If you sort of, you're identifying as like a metalhead or whatever, but you also, into Fleetwood Mac, or you wanna secretly go to a rave with your buddies on the weekend. Like the 90s and the 2000s were a lot more like, I'm a punker and like this is what I am and shit. And it was kind of cool to feel part of that tribe. But like kids today, like I see my students now, man, they don't give a fuck. They don't care. And I think that's pretty awesome. I kind of wish we had a bit of that, but evolution is necessary. Like the
kids these days, like their identity is based on a lot of different things more than just, oh, this is what's in the magazine, because for a lot of us, like our identities were driven by what we read in magazines from overseas and what we saw in music videos from overseas and what we heard on, records from overseas. And so, I mean, it's still happening with kids these days, but we would be like, this is what a punk is. And then for me, especially, like I got into the hardcore scene in like a big way. And like the Durban hardcore scene was just this massive like moment in time for, like 500 people. Like they will always like think of it
It
as this
was.
amazingly special thing. And yeah, but like at the same time, we did have weird vibes of like just identity politics within, like small little circles of
Yeah,
like
yeah,
subgenres.
yeah. Totally, man. I think the younger kids are are definitely better off for it, and maybe that speaks to like a broader question of identity in South Africa, like as a without getting too deep into this, but just maybe as a white South African, we're so diluted culturally, like if you talk to anyone, and for better or for worse, diluted, like the fact that, for example, my family's like Italian and it's Irish and it's British and it's all this kind of stuff, versus seeing our brothers, our indigenous brothers here in South Africa, will identify, I'm a Zulu man, or I am also man, and there's something that, like, I've always been a bit jealous of. I don't know if jealous is the right word, but felt a little bit like on the outside for. It's like, man, that's their culture. That is like, and that's fucking cool. We sort of flounder trying to sort of grab at elements of culture that like will sit with us as these Europeans finding ourselves in the tip of Africa. And, then we gravitate to things, like you say, things that we see in magazines or we hear on radio or whatever, that's like, shit, man, I want to be that. And then that helps define me as a person. And again, for better or for worse, like I've learned a lot of good things for that, but through that, and developed things through that. But I could have also factioned myself in being like, I'm a punk and fuck people that aren't punks and blah, 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 which is pretty stupid.
You don't need to tell me. But everyone, I mean, it's going to happen from time to time. And I think, you speaking openly there, a lot of white people will relate to that, especially years ago when the culture hadn't necessarily integrated as much as it has now. We were still very much
Yeah.
segregated back in the day by just culturally, really. Like it wasn't like on purpose, but it was because people were used to that. And so kept doing it. And then also when you're seeing things from overseas and you're trying to emulate things that are white, it's it still kind of creates a disconnect. But I'm grateful that with time that things have actually changed a lot. And that's what you say, like the kids these days with their identities, it's not necessarily based on those sorts of things. It's based on who they are and want to be. And I don't know, I think, yeah, like you said, they are definitely better off for it, but they've still got their challenges, and I'll chat to them about it when I get them on the podcast. But
Yeah.
for you
Yeah.
guys,
No, I agree with you.
yeah, for you guys when you were playing, as a young band, well, actually, yeah, how did the band form? We haven't got to that. Let's hear how that actually happened.
So me and my oldest friend, Henk Lister, who we started the band together with, he was my very first friend in primary school, and we met on day one of grade 1, 1989. And we clicked. Like he had, his parents were living in Australia and he had immigrated back here to South Africa. And I'll never forget, like, day one of primary school. We're sitting there, all the grade ones, like in the front row of the school. And we happened to be sitting next to one another. And I whispered, "Hi, I'm Paul." And and he didn't know, like, the vibes of, like, South African school assemblies. And in his loud, like, Australian voice, "Hi, I'm Hank." And, like, the headmaster, like, looked straight at him. And he was like, "You boy, stand up right now." And this poor little kid with this massive afro, like fucking in his Ayers Rock t-shirt, like not even in the school uniform, has to stand up. And the headmaster points at him and he's like, "That, boys and girls, is a naughty boy." I'll never fucking forget that, man. We became, yeah, it's insane. Fuck. And like,
School, hey?
we became friends, and we stayed friends from then. And we got into music together and drama and arts. And he's amazing artist and designer, and we got into the same bands. That whole kind of process of finding bands happened together. I think at like 12
I had a friend like
11
that
or
too.
12 we were like,
I was a bit older.
Man, and we were like, dude, we're gonna fucking form a band together and we're gonna do this thing. And like, to this day, even though he's immigrated to Australia, we still collaborate he still writes for the band. Like the last EP, he was all over the last EP, and we just make it work, you know. And I'm super grateful for that connection.
And so you guys start this band, you get some friends together, and where's the story from there to, you know, you've got a CD out, you're a touring band, you're in Blunt magazine, people know who you are. So, well, I mean, that's how I see it from the outside. You know, I don't know how you guys saw it from the inside, but what was that journey?
Well, this is actually why I wanted to reach out to you in the first place, because Durban plays such a huge role in this. Like a massive, without Durban and our friends and bands in Durban, I don't think that it would have happened the same way. So like Henk and I, we were maybe for 15, 16, and we were down in Umhlanga, like having like a weekend there or something. And he had made himself like a hand-painted no-effects skateboard. And I'd made myself a hand-painted lagwagon skateboard. And we were cruising down like the promenade there near the Sands Hotel. And outside Sands, like these sort of group of local Umhlanga punks were hanging out and smoking and talking shit and whatever. And we cruised past, and these lads were a fair bit older than us, and they were like, in my worst Durban draw, like, "Hey bro, oh my god, what the fuck is that? Like, fucking no effects skateboard, what the fuck, dude?" And like, "Yeah, pretty cool, I guess." And the fucking lagwagon skateboard, oh my fucking god, bro, that's so kiff, and you got to meet my friends. And then these guys were in a band called Durban Solid Waste, DSW.
Oh yes, okay.
Which later became a band called Still Thinking. And we became huge friends with those guys, Sean Hauserman and Dylan Kraus and a bunch of other kids. And they were like, "Bro, you got to come to my house. I'm going to show you all these fucking kiff fucking punk bands." And we went to Sean's house, and like, which is a little bit on the ridge there. And then his room was just fucking blasted with Rancid posters and leftover crack and like all the CDs you could imagine. That we were just like, "Geez, where did you get all this stuff?" And we were just blown away.
People listening need to know that Leftover Crack is the name of a band. There wasn't crack left over at the house, I'm assuming, right?
No. I think the only inebriants at that stage were like 10 Rand quarts from the taxi rank.
Yeah, classic.
Yeah. So we went to Sean's house, and we just got exposed to all these bands we hadn't heard of. And but he played guitar, and I could see he was playing, but his guitar was like lank out of tune, and I'd been taking guitar for a while, so I tuned it up for him properly and like showed him a few things, and he showed me a few things, and just this amazing relationship formed with those dudes, like the skating and surfing guys and the punk thing. And then, you know, we actually started, before we were playing gigs properly in Pretoria, we would come down to Durban to play with the bands there. And our very first gig ever was at the Bat Center with Crossing Point and Still Thinking. So, like, yeah.
It must have been a pretty big gig at the time. Yeah. Like, I think probably like 200 people there. Those Bat Center gigs used to be pretty big.
Yeah, they were. It was much bigger than it was in Pretoria. I can't recall like how full it was, but I just remember having a total blast, but being quite, you know, nervous because, you know, Crossing Point were a big deal. You know, they were like,
yeah,
you know, for me, there's like in the South African sort of like punk rock royalty. You know, if we're going by towns, you know, Durban, it was Crossing Point, and Josie had Fuzzy Gish, and Cape Town had the Hogs, and Pretoria had Leak.
Hogs,
so,
yeah. Although some Durbanites would probably argue Sibling Rivalry would have been our punk band, and then, you know, Crossing Point were the hardcore cats. But the Crossing Point guys were a bit older, so yeah, that's why I guess they're your reference points. Whereas, like, well, that band, because I know on the Vanna episode he exposed me because he told the story about me hating Crossing Point when it's not exactly true. I just had issues with the frontman, they lost frontman because he said some wild things and did some wild things that I disagreed with. But in general, I agree 100%. Like Crossing Point, like what was that fucking song, Icebergs? That was such a banger. That was when Wes was still singing for the band. I really, really liked them. And then musically, I mean, Brandon's always been on it. Like he started a band called Strage later on, and like, fucking love Strage. And like, but Russ and Richard are both wonderful guys. They've got a tattoo studio out in Hong Kong, and their work is phenomenal. So yeah, lots of love for Crossing Points as well. And there was such a seminal band. So your first show is opening for these guys.
Yes, yeah. We never really got close to them, I guess, because of the age gap, and you're also kind of intimidated. There's like a mystique around it. So like, we were definitely more like aligned, let's say peer wise, weird word to use when talking about punk with Matt and sibling rivalry and low profile and bands like that than we were with Crossing Point. The missions to Durban were always just so like, they just felt so charged, man. Like the Burn gigs and the Winston gigs and the Willowvale Hotel gigs. Like it just so many kids would come out and everyone was so enthusiastic. Like they just felt this shit so hard, It felt like this was like, the skaters and the surfers and whatever. Like punk sort of aligned so well with that, and Durban being the best place to go for that kind of stuff at the time. We didn't even go to Cape Town for the first 5 or 6 years of the band. We played Pretoria, we played Joburg, and we played Durban. And any chance we could get to go down there and to feel that vibe, we'd take it. So super grateful for that, man.
I mean, I've written some stuff in my short film where I diss touring bands a bit, because touring bands loved fucking coming to Durban because they would get more love here than they would at home. Like it was this thing that like we would like, if a band was coming to, if a band was going to take the time out of their, lives to come and drive down and play a show for us, we were going to show the fuck up and we were going to rock the fuck out. Like that was very much the philosophy here in Durban, because it was all new and exciting and different and cool. It was just like, this, because it's also like during the weeks before, leading up to shows and stuff, people would be sharing music, people would be talking about the bands that were coming down. So if you didn't know about them, someone would tell you, and like I know for you guys, like for me, one of your biggest, like the people who championed you guys the hardest to me was Ali Heath from the City Belmazes. Like he fucking loved you guys, and he would rave about you guys. And I think like he's the reason why I like listen to you guys.
Oh man, what a sweetheart. Yeah, and he still sends me random messages every now and again, like, bro, I'm pumping this tune, fucking love you, O's. And it goes both ways, like with Misers and stuff. Like when we heard them, we were like, holy fuck, these O's are like just out of high school, and they're like murdering us. We got to pull up our socks here, I think like 2 or 3 weeks ago,
Kurt is one of the best songwriters in the country. Like,
oh dude, power, just so crisp and I don't know, badass, man. But Ali sent me like a picture of his some high school workbook or whatever, or a pencil case, and it's like ATFN like scrawled all over it, like fuck yeah, man. I sent it to the guys on the group, and they're just like, oh my god, that's so cool, because we're all kind of getting up there a little bit now. So those sort of things really mean a lot,
But what was the experience of being in the band like, like these touring things? Like, what did you feel? Did you feel like the band was going to make it? Like, this is a thing that you can do as a career? Or, did you think this is just a limited time only? Let's get the max out of it.
Well, yeah, I guess to be honest, we were all gunning for it to be as good as it possibly could be, like I was studying music and playing like private gigs on the weekend and stuff. So my whole life was shaped around music. And at that point, ATFN was rehearsing like 3 times a week. And we really wanted to be that band that like fucked up everything, just like were the tightest, had the most interesting songs, were, like we just wanted to be better. Not, that is, you have that kind of weird competitive thing when you're younger, like, and now it's like music is not a competition, but for ourselves, we just wanted to be as fucking brilliant as we.
Live shows are a competition. I'm sorry. You are trying to outdo the band before and after you. If you're not, like, please don't waste my money. Like, that's how I feel. Like, I want the bands to, not in a negative way, not in a, oh, fuck you, we're going to be better than you, but just in a, healthy competition way of like, everyone needs to step it up and bring their A game. And I think there was a period in time for live bands in South Africa that it was competitive. And because of the competition, it made everyone great. Like every band just had to be full of energy and just deliver interesting, cool shit because that was the level.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right, bro. You're absolutely right. And for us, coming from a little bit more of the guitar-orientated stuff, we had 3 guitars and a keyboard player. Everybody sang. It was like the sort of Iron Maiden harmonies and solos and maybe 2 or 3 fucking key changes in a song and time changes. We had this, and we still have him, like this absolute demon jazz drummer who replaced our first drummer, who's just like, the oak is like 8 hands, and just introducing element like the jazz philosophy into like a progressive punk rock band was fucking perfect for us, because this oak would play and just like,
I mean, jazz and prog, like,
yeah, exactly. Bringing those elements in was important for us, but also a challenge to pull off live. So we would rehearse, like I said, like 3 times a week and really push that. So the focus was very much on, we're going to be pushing that. And as you, in its own little way, at the time when you start playing, getting better slots at festivals, and you're touring more often, and then you wake up one day and there's an email from a distribution company, and then now your CDs are going to be in Musica and CD Warehouse, and you're doing interviews and you're getting management, and you start to feel. What's that? Sorry?
Sorry, I was saying, like, but you're still only getting R1 from each CD sale, basically, because of how those distribution deals work.
Oh, fuck yeah, I know. It's a total yank. But you feel, especially when you start hearing yourself on radio, like tuning into, you're being playlisted on 5FM, or Tuks FM is playing your stuff, and some, Cape Town stations joining your music, and you start to feel this momentum behind you. Then, the mind does start to think, hey, maybe this is something that is going to be, we'll be able to tour overseas, or, kind of tickle the attention of maybe more serious punk or metal labels or whatever. And, but it wasn't to be that way, man. Unfortunately, like I got a debilitating hand injury. It wasn't even an injury. It was just like kind of like a tendonitis, but it was very severe, because I was also drumming for Slashdogs at the same time as ATFN, and we would often like double bill. We would double header, so like I was playing 2 shows a night, and I just my arm just got worn out, and I had to have surgery, and I couldn't play for about 2 years, and that actually pretty much ended it around about 2006. It took a while to get back onto the train again, but that unfortunately like put a stop to things, which is a pity. But I've learned a lot from it, and now here we are again playing. So it's kind of come full circle.
When that happened, what were you thinking? Like what was your mindset?
It was fucked. It was fucked. It was, so I was in my final year of studying music at Tuks, and I was playing in various sort of, not corporate bands, but like sort of weekend cover bands for money and stuff. That was my main income. And ATFN and Slashdogs, it just all ended. It all just fucking came within like a month or 2. It just all stopped. And me and my other guitar player, Mark Hinch, we decided to immigrate. I was like, I can't be around this place. It's just, I can't be around this whole scene that we've been a part of for so long. And and everything. It's just it's killing me. So we decided to move overseas to England, and start a new life there. And maybe once I'd healed, start up a new band that side and whatever. But that was also a very hard mission. Like we couldn't make it into bands, and the work was hard. I was working at a fucking call center for like 2 years, living in squats, living in proper like rat infested, boarded up squats.
The
and
London
stuff.
dream, hey? You are
Oh
just,
my God.
I think you are triggering people right now by saying all of this, because I know for a fact some of the people that are going to listen to this podcast have gone through very similar experiences when they moved over to England, thinking it was a bit more of a greener pasture than it really was.
Oh, dude. No, I'm sure. And apologies to anyone if that is the case. Or rather, my sympathies to those that did. I mean, it wasn't all bad. I mean, I got to see almost every one of my favorite bands play, but I don't know, you just fucking slogging it there to try and be part of an even bigger rat race. And you don't really ever surface, you're like, and also when it comes to music there, like I remember I became quite good friends with the guitar player of a band called Orange Goblin, which is like a fairly big London stoner metal band. And, they play fucking, they go on to, they were touring with Dio and Black Sabbath, and like they're quite an important band. But anyway, it's like I went to go watch them one weekend at like a strip club in Croydon or something, and it was like 7 or 8 bands playing, and like the first of the 7 bands could have like mopped the floor with Judas Priest. You know what I mean? It was just so good. The level of musicianship and how tightly knit the scene was. It was like for an outsider to penetrate that was it just felt impossible, man. So we actually ended up coming back. Home. London fucking sucked.
How long were you there for?
I was there for almost 3 years. Yeah.
Okay, I mean, that's a good go of it, I think.
Yeah. I learned a shitload, man.
After you came back, what were you thinking? You want to get back into music? Like, were you playing at the time? Because I know I'm trying to figure out, when did you get into production? When did you start your studio and all of that? So was it soon after coming back, or?
Well, the studio we actually had going since about 1999. We had a rehearsal room here and like basic production facilities available. So that was already going. So that was another thing that just was, I suppose I could have stuck around and worked with bands, but I was just too bleak, man. So we closed that business for a little while, and then when I came back, we started it up again. But it was actually, so by almost the 3rd year in England, my hand was starting to feel better. I could play again a little bit and felt stronger. And it was my guys in Slashdogs that called me up and were like, "Hey, bro, like, doesn't look like you're having the greatest time that side. Like, why don't you come back and we fire that bird up again," which we did. And then when I came back, it was like from 2007 till last year, like Slashdogs was just like, we put so much into that band, like just unreal amounts of work. Put out another 2 albums and an EP, and we're just recording and playing our balls off. So it was actually that setup that I came back and rejoined.
From there, you started recording again. Well, so as I said, like, I'm just trying to get into the recording studio side of things. How much of that takes up your everyday life? I assume that's your main source of income, right?
Well, it's part of it. It forms one third of my income. So the work in the studio is part of that. Doing all manner of audio related stuff, and then my gigs, like my sort of weekend gigs and like acoustic gigs and kind of corporate-y type gigs we do. That's part of my income. And then I also teach music and guitar at Crawford College in Pretoria. And so I've got a whole bunch of students as well. I juggle those 3 professions, if you like. And then, but yeah, when COVID hit, obviously, like the studio, there was no traffic, and the bands weren't rehearsing, so that income fell away as well. But thankfully, all my students stuck around, so I was able to teach them online and keep going with the kids, which was awesome.
And I take it that must be quite a rewarding job.
Yeah, dude, absolutely, man. Like, I predominantly teach. I predominantly teach the lighties, so like primary school. Obviously, I have high school kids, but I really dig teaching sort of like 10, 11, 12-year-old kids. You know, they're I don't know, they're still at that age where they just super enthusiastic about stuff, and yeah, man, exactly. And there's still a wide-eyed wonder about stuff, you know, obviously by the time it's high school, then it's like, forget the pressure of just completing high school academically, but like, like you're a teenager, so you're just concerned about gigs, or not gigs, girls, not gigs. See where my mind's at, and being popular, whatever, those typical tropes. So yeah, I mainly teach the, let's say, 9, 10, 11, 12-year-olds music and guitar.
Okay, dope. And then the recording studio side of things, you're saying you do an all manner of jobs. What does that entail? Because I don't think people understand like what recording studios are like. And like you're saying, people, haven't been able to come in and record, and people like, I didn't realize you were also using your recording studio as a band space for people to practice in that. But that's the thing, when you've got this space, you have to be able to utilize it to be bringing in income in all the different ways. So yeah, what are some of the jobs that you have to do? Well, not have to do, that you get to do. What is your role as the person in the recording studio? Like, you're the producer, but then what else? Like, what is the overarching term for what you do?
Oh yeah, I guess especially in South Africa, you kind of just have to do, you have to do everything. Sometimes you're liaising with the artists, and you're sometimes fetching them, and you're getting them lunch, and you're making sure that they have all the right gear there, and you're doubling as you're doing an engineer's role, and you're doing a production role. I mean, like, I enjoy the engineering side, but like
production and engineering.
Well, production is more musical. Production, I feel, is more working with the artist to extract the best possible performance from them, as well as, well, before that, creating a setting that is comfortable for them to perform in a way that we're all happy with. Whereas engineering, that's more the nitty-gritty about signal path and systems and mic placement and keeping up to date with plugins and all that side of things. So like, I've never really been like a massively technically minded person. I think I've just kind of gotten by with what I know and more what I feel. But I'm blessed to have my partner here that works at the studio with me. He is just like an absolute engineering wizard. So I feel safe, then I can do my job and not have to really like get too involved in the engineering side, because it's not my strong point. So in the team, I know my role, and we've been running that partnership. Yeah. Well, he's the drummer in ATFN as well, so he's been involved in the studio since it began. So we've been working together for since 2000. We've been doing that together.
What sort of bands have you guys recorded? Is it a matter of anyone comes in, or are you specialized, or what's the vibe there?
We've done a shit ton of recordings. We've kind of we always wanted to focus mainly on rock bands or alternative bands and jazz bands, actually, because the studio is a live space, and Francois, my partner, he comes more from a jazz background. We were really keen to utilize the live space for jazz bands, particularly because the level of musicianship is so high that we can mic them up and get them a good sound, and literally hit record and let them do the work. We don't really have to do much in the way of production. These guys are so good at what they do. We literally hit record after getting a good sound, and that's it. To date, the best thing we ever did was like a 12-track album in 14 hours. So that was, and that's a band playing their songs. That was on a 3-take rule. So they got 3 takes of those 12 songs, all played immaculately, all done live. And yeah, so that was a real awesome experience. So we try and encourage that with whichever band comes through our doors, is to really be, you know, super polished and like super well rehearsed and just know their stuff. But in terms of bands we've recorded, like obviously we've done all the Slashdogs stuff. We've done all of our own ATFN stuff. We did the last Narrow record. We've done a host of jazz bands. We've done like solo artists, like because it's Pretoria, we get like quite a few like Afrikaans sort of singer-songwriters who come through here, which is always interesting. And then I actually partnered up with Kaya Records for a few years because Paul and Guy are really good friends of mine, and also through that Durban connection years ago became friends with Paul and Kaya, and so Kaya and myself, we for a while we were doing limited run 7-inch pressings, and the bands would record and I would mix and master it, and then Kaya would put out that. These.
I've got the Black Mouth one, so thank you very much for that.
Yeah, the 7-inch sessions, man, those were really freaking cool. I didn't record all of it. I was mainly mixing and mastering that stuff, but we did, like, for example, like bands predominantly do 7-inch records. We did an 8-inch. We did South Africa's very first 8-inch release through a band called Follow Me, Follow You, which are like a devastating, like Afro.
Oh, yes. They're very
good. You know those guys.
Jazzy.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. We did that.
Jade,
and then we did.
I can't remember the rest of them.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, man. Yeah, you know those guys. Yeah, exactly. We did a sunga, which is like a traditional African, almost like how do you describe it? Like sangoma stuff. Yeah, you know their vibe. And we did
spiritual. Their live performances are unreal.
There we go. Okay, so you'll probably I'm just gonna assume that you know most of the bands I'm talking about here anyway.
Yeah, but the people listening might not.
Yeah, sure. We did a Guy Buttrey, Madala Kunene split, which is like probably my favorite one of the lot, just because of who it was, you know. Like Madala being an like absolute legend with Maskandi, KwaZulu-Natal guitar styles. Guy as well being just so good at what he does, like an absolute national treasure. And then we did a whole bunch with them, and then we I'm trying to think of all the different bands we've done. Kind of like I can't off the top of my head think right now, but those are some of the really standout ones, and all of those are available like from the band's different SoundClouds and whatnot. We did one really awesome one was Guy Buttrey did a collaboration with the Northwest University marimba ensemble. So he pulled in here with like it was like 4 or 5 marimbas and a horn section and a drummer and a bassist and backup singers, and it was also the first time him recording electric guitar, so that was a bit of a unique thing. So those were some of the standout ones that we did that were really special.
And Guy's done a lot of interesting collaborations in his time, and he's just a phenomenal guitarist, like absolutely unreal. So yeah, you've worked with some very fucking cool people. But I want to talk about the people in your band that you've been working with, because you guys are putting out a release on the day this is coming out. So this is coming out on Friday, and you've got a new, what is it? Is it a new song or is it the new album? Because I'm looking at your promo work here, and I'm trying to figure out if it's yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't reveal that much, but basically what we're doing, because we got picked up by a local label who work super hard at punting local bands. They're called Mongrel Records. So it's a couple of bands who are on there as well, like our friends in Fuzzy Gish, they're on there, and Rough Magic, and I saw they just signed the Springbok Nude Girls, and then so
oh wow,
a couple of cool. I mean, I suppose we probably fall more into the, I don't even like the word, but like legacy. That's just another word for like old guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then like but obviously like a shit ton of local bands. Anyway, so we're putting out a series of singles over the next couple of months, all with unique artworks for the songs, and the artworks will be available for anyone to download and print those artworks if they want to have it. It's also going to come with each with its own unique set of merchandise with a company called Merch on Demand, which they've been working with us for years. And
yeah, and I'll say their SEO is very good, because when you
Yeah.
Google ATFN, their website comes up. So
Right. Yeah. So that's the vibe. We would like to do an album maybe at the end of the year, but throughout lockdown we were just writing a whole bunch of songs. And the thing with the album is that like you have to wait for everything to be done, and we're kind of like, fuck this. We love these songs. We're gonna put out a song every 2 months. We wanted to do it every month, but the label were like, nah, it's a bit too much content like that nature. In quick succession, so we're going to do one every 2 months with a limited run of artworks and merchandise, etc., all available. So that's super exciting, and the stuff is sounding so rad because we're taking it. It's for the first time we're not doing everything ourselves, mixing and mastering and recording and all that stuff. We're
are you not worried, Dad? You're not a little nervous?
We were initially, yeah, we were, but we were like, guys, it's too much stress, man. It's too much stress. We're way too close to it, and if we look around, like none of our friends do that. It's just they don't. Some maybe do, but like
Math is the only band that really does that anymore.
Oh man, and then hats off to them, for keeping their heads on straight. Because by the end of that process, I'm just like such a fucking nervous wreck. It's so shit. So we thought, okay, for this one, we're gonna find an outside engineer to mix and master, and we cycled through 4 or 5 different guys, and then we actually found a guy called Scott Holquist who worked with Ryan Green from Motor Studios, who did all the No Effects and No Use for a Name stuff, and he plays in a band called 10 Foot Pole, which is also kind of like in that skate punk fraternity, and he's an amazing engineer. And the mixes came back, and we were like, fuck yes, the hunt is now over. So I'm over the moon, man. We can just record, and we're safe in his hands.
Amazing. And what is this track that you're releasing about? Because you've got some cryptic artwork up there, and I'll read it out. Some spend their whole lives seeking serene mental paradigms, but to tell the difference, pathology or pantomime. So what's the vibe with this song, man? It seems pretty cryptic.
Yeah, it's I suppose like a lot of songs can be interpreted in different ways, and I'd kind of like to leave it that way, leave it like that for people to interpret what they want. But a little bit of about it is just basically like how we all express our subconscious pains, basically, like the difference between people expressing very outwardly and those that keep quiet and keep a smile on their face while they're suffering very hard inside. And it's not really a statement. It's not really a statement saying that you get 2 camps of people. You get the people that are like vocal about it to gain attention versus those that keep quiet about it. We're not saying that. We're not saying that those people are faking it and the other people aren't faking it. It's just that careful line between perhaps perhaps, like we say, pathology or pantomime, something that's very deeply veiled versus something that's very, exuberantly outwardly expressed. If that makes sense, does anything like it? Does that make sense?
That makes complete sense to me, dude. Like when you explained the beginning, or we said what you said there, like I immediately thought, I understood what you meant by pathology or pantomime, and it is like that thing of, and I mean, I assume it's a personal. Well, obviously, it's something personal to you if you'd put it in a song, but yeah, like I definitely get that, because it is an interesting thing, especially in the modern era. And I guess I don't know how much time you have here, but I dig to talk about this because
let's get in. Yeah,
that is the thing. We have to perform in a way like it's weird because it's amazing that we're all talking more about mental illness and stuff like that. But then it becomes this thing of like, am I performing my mental illness for other people? Am I, just going with the flow here, with the herd? Am I doing what they're doing because they're doing it and I relate and I see some of myself in this? Like, and yeah, or, is stuff deeply ingrained? Are we naturally like this? So yeah, man, this seems like a pretty interesting song to me, and I haven't even heard it yet.
Yeah, man. What you say is true. I think we're asking more questions than we're trying to make statements about things, because you can't. Everything is on a scale, like, mental health and psychology is it's not just one fixed thing. It's not just like, for example, someone who's going through depression and they are exhibiting, well, let's say they're exhibiting X, Y, and Z, and therefore they are this. You might have a few elements of, you might be having X and Y, but you're not experiencing A, B, and C, but you're experiencing F and G. Where does that land me? And so it talks a little bit about that, but in a very veiled way. Like, the song actually came about because it was drawing a comparison between two people in our lives, that one person was very quiet about their mental health and they took their life. Okay. And that was a person very close to us. And, that was the person who was perhaps in the song, the Pathology. And then we had another character in our life who was very performative about their mental health, and blaming everybody and being very vocal about it, and doing these sort of like fake suicide attempts and sending the pictures to everybody. And meanwhile, the guy had like a very bad drug problem. And once the drug problem cleared up, all that behavior cleared up. So we were like, and these two people were friends. So it's just that comparison between someone who was suffering in silence, who always had a smile on their face, but ended up taking their life, versus the person that was very vocal and blaming everybody and like, I'm so mentally ill and I'm this and I'm this and this is your fault and this is your fault and this is your fault. Always sort of, it was always the world's fault. It was always everyone else's fault, and, going to the extremes of like sending sort of like
I've
fake
been
suicide attempt pictures to people. Yeah, it really fucking rocked us. And it was like, dude, this fucking behavior is fucking gross and fucking toxic. You need help. Ultimately they did, but they did. And that's, I'm glad that they did. But that was the initial spark for that comparison, Pathology or Pantomime.
Do you think, like, in terms of, because you brought up Buddhism a little bit earlier, so are you on that tip at all philosophically? And do you think in terms of yin and yang? Or because, yeah, I mean, in a weird way, the Pathology or Pantomime does just seem like that juxtaposition that comes from yin and yang.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't see myself in black and white. I don't see the world as black and white. I mean, I suppose the title brings out the dichotomy, and we were a little bit concerned that that it would be construed that we are trying to say it's either A or B or black and white, that it falls into that camp. It doesn't. It makes for an interesting lyric. It makes for an interesting observation from a song standpoint, but we hope that it's seen more through the lens of the gray area than through the lens of like the A or the B or the black and the white.
Well, that's the thing to me. Like, when you brought up that it's two different people, I was kind of like, was a bit of a surprise to me, because to me, I thought initially, just with you describing it, and that, like, that could be within one person, having that arguments with themselves. And, at times, you can like, at times, I mean, because I'm saying I know this for myself, I've been the pantomime type guy who's lashed out at everyone and just being like, fuck you guys, you got, just lots of that. And I've also been the one suffering in silence, who doesn't want to tell anyone what he's thinking, and that, because I've lashed out before, and because I'm worried that, people won't take me as seriously. So yeah, I get what you're going for there.
But yeah, look, I mean, we're getting very, very under the hood with this, and it's quite for anyone who's listening, I hope you're keeping up. I'm trying to keep up with my own mental processes here. But what you say is true. It's not necessarily like also supposed to be viewed like via the dichotomy of like person A and person B. This can be also all happening, like you say, within one person. You know, it's also it's saying that the times of like when we are performative, and all the times when we suffer in silence. You know, it's exactly that as well. It's those two paradigms that play out, and also everything in between that plays out. But I suppose it's inevitable that like when you present the song with Pathology or Pantomime, it could be seen that like are we saying it's either one or the other. But we hope that like people would look through it. You know what I mean?
Oh, well, hopefully people would have listened to this conversation a little bit, and the people who have listened to this conversation can explain that to others who might get it wrong. So thank you for your time, bro. Thank you for explaining that, and thank you for sharing everything you have. Is there anything else you wanted to chat about?
Oh, man, not necessarily. Like I just wanted to say thank you to you for having this platform. It's really, really, I think, doing cool things and turning people on to interesting things that are happening in South Africa creatively. It's really nice to see that. And, you know, I would just say encourage maybe more people to do that type of thing. You know, when we're down here in the southern tip, we kind of feel maybe a little bit ignored by the rest of the world. And, you know, oh shit, can I have a cool band, or can I have a cool podcast, and, you know, can I have a rad YouTube channel and stuff? And by all intents, it might, you know, take a bit more work than like our brothers overseas, but like just to encourage people to be creative and you know, I understand everyone's having a bit of a rough time now, you know. I want to say post-COVID because it's not like out of our society just yet, but the mental and the socioeconomical effects that have come, you know, there's been a lot of devastation and a lot of hurt for a lot of people, but also a shit ton of creativity and so much amp. And that's what I'm seeing with podcasts like this and bands that I'm working with. O's are so keen and amped to just work, man. And that's the vibe. Like, just stay on that tip. Just keep fucking doing what you love. Like, even if it's just to fulfill your own soul as much as you can. Like, let's try and be positive in the face of all these things. It is so hard. It is so hard. But I'm really appreciating and getting amped by the massive creativity that I'm seeing coming out of South Africa at the moment. It's really inspiring, man.
Fucking 100%, dude. That's why I do this podcast, is because there's just so many amazing creative South Africans, you know, and like, you know, people might not necessarily know guys like you because you're a bit longer in the tooth than the youngsters, but I also think like they need to hear these stories, you know. It's like both, for me, this podcast is about putting people onto, you know, people that they might know and don't necessarily know in a certain way, people that they have no clue about because they were before their time, and people who they have no clue about because they're too current, maybe. You know, like, that's the thing. I just want to share stories, and I agree with you. That's like, South Africans need to take control of our narrative, you know, and that's what this is in a way for me. It's saying, it's what I've always done, like, especially like with Durban is Yours and various other things. To me, it's about, you should tell the stories of the people around you. Like, you should tell the stories so that they're heard, so that it gets out there, and so that people can't complain and be like, oh, why is nobody doing this? It's like, you fucking do the thing. Instead of saying, why is nobody doing the thing, you do the fucking thing. So exactly. Yeah, like for me, we can be the bands we want to hear, which is like just a fundamental thing in my mind. You know, we can be the bands we want to hear, which means you can do whatever it is you want to do. Just, you can, whatever it is you want to hear, whatever it is you want to see, create that thing.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Cool.
Absolutely. And exactly. We don't have to have the American and the European measurement yardstick as the definer of like what is quality and stuff. I think we're so beyond that now. Like, just like you said, do because we need to do. Love it, man. And thank you.